Hello, smart people. How are you today? So I got the idea for this class because I was actually teaching an in-person class on tech for non-technical founders recently. And there were a couple of people who came up to me after class, and they were essentially business owners. And they both had this pretty unhappy look on their faces. And they said, well, we really enjoyed this class, but we wish we had heard about you before. We wish we'd heard about tech for non-techies before, because essentially both of those business owners had spent a lot of money on developers and didn't have anything to show for it. One person spent, I think, about 80K, and another one was like upwards of 100. And I really, really felt for them, because it wasn't just money, it's time, it's effort, it's energy, but it's also, in some ways, your reputation, your reputation even around your team, that, okay, you're going to create a new project, you're going to go through this transformation, you're going to, become a tech founder, and you've spent a lot of money and then you have nothing to show for it. It sucks. This happens. So, maybe you've spent 20K, maybe you spent 2K, maybe you spent 200. This happens. You're not alone. You're not stupid, but you do need to take responsibility and figure out what went wrong. Because unless you learn this lesson, your next 100K is going to go the same way as the first. And for those of you who have come to my live classes online, you would have seen that actually the statistics that I normally show, that if people don't do proper design validation at the beginning, they are likely to spend somewhere between about 50 to 100K on redevelopment. I'll explain what that means later on in the lesson. But essentially, it just means that if you don't know what you're doing, you're likely to waste money. First of all, we need to diagnose what went wrong. A lot of people think that, oh, the developer scammed me. And yes, this happens sometimes, but it actually doesn't happen that often. What normally happens is that the founder doesn't give good directions. And so the developers either misunderstand the directions, or they kind of make up their own vision. And so when the founder gets what it is that they thought that they had ordered, they're getting something completely different. So first of all, Mike, is if you are in the situation, ask yourself, did you honestly define what success looks like? Like, did you just say, make me a healthcare app? Did you say, make me an app that's going to, I don't know, drive revenue for my business? Did you have a clear product goal? So in a previous lesson, we talked about product goals. Essentially, when you are creating a new tech product, it's a minimum viable version of something. So it's a really, really simple version of what you're going to create. And that needs to solve one or two problems. So let's think about Airbnb. The original problem that it solved was by helping people who needed a place to stay and basically linking them to people who had a spare room. So the way you measure success is, do people book spare rooms? That's it. You don't really care about anything else at the beginning. So in your case, did you have this clear product metric that you were going to measure? Because if you didn't, I just don't see how it's possible for you to have a successful product. And here, I hate to say it to you, but whose fault is that? It's not the developer's fault, because it's not their job to define the vision. It's the founder's job to define the vision. But if you didn't know what you're doing, you didn't know how to define the vision. Basically, having a clear product goal is defining your vision. If you didn't have one, no wonder you got a disaster. Did you focus on creating something that you thought was absolutely perfect, as opposed to actually releasing it? And I'll give you an example. So this example actually makes me sad. This was a student of mine last year, and he joined the technical founders course. He'd already been working with developers. He'd already been working on his product for quite a long time. And by the time the course was over, I was saying, okay, you were kind of ready to release even before the course. You joined the course to really understand the framework so you could kind of lead the project better. why are we still not releasing anything? And he said, oh, there's a feature that the developers just can't get right. And until they get it right, I can't show it to my customers. So no. And the feature that he talked about was, I mean, it would have been nice to have, but it wasn't absolutely critical to the success of this product. And I tried cajoling him and coaxing him every way that I could, because I was saying, it's actually much more important that you release something decent, get people to use it. And whilst that's happening, this feature is going to be developed, or maybe you'll realize that actually this feature doesn't really matter. But my skills of persuasion did not work. And as far as I know, he is still fiddling with this thing. So fiddling with it basically in private, as opposed to releasing it out into the public. This is where I find that it really helps for founders to work with an external person. When you join Tech for Non-Technical Founders, you actually work one-on-one with a coach, with me or with one of my team, to basically make sure that you don't end up focusing on creating some sort of impossible perfect thing that's going to take years to create, and you're creating that in silence and in isolation from your target market. That is a bad thing. Founders want to do that because we often have this perfect idea of what something should look like, and we essentially need somebody to help us. Obviously, we can't, as your instructor, we can't make you do what you don't want to do, but we make strong suggestions. Anyway, don't focus on perfection, focus on utility. Like that Airbnb example that I gave you. As long as the first version of Airbnb could match a person looking for accommodation with a person who wanted to rent accommodation, everything else was basically kind of superfluous. So stick to that example. Now Airbnb is massive. Do not try to make that kind of product as your first version, because you'll be stuck there forever and nothing will move forward. Always think about how you are going to market your product and sell your product and get your users to share your product with other target users before anybody writes any code, before you invest any serious money into this product. Because essentially, the success of every tech product, let's just say it's an app, depends on, okay, how usable is the product? Is it easy to use? Is it intuitive? Does it glitch? Does it have lots of bugs? So basically the product side. And also marketing, that's growth hacking. That's basically how do you get the product into people's hands? Let's take Instagram, for example. Instagram is a good product, but would people use it if their friends weren't on it? Would people use it if nobody they liked was on it? If it was basically like a bunch of random people that you didn't care about, random people you didn't know, and they were just posting random photos and, you weren't particularly attracted to these photos, you wouldn't care. So this is an example of where you need to have a thoughtful approach to your product and a thoughtful approach to how you spread the message about the product and how you get people to use it. Only when you have a combination of both can you actually have a success. So if you have gone through this process and you have spent lots of money on professionals, and you're licking your wounds, and either you've got 7 users or you've got no users, or your product doesn't work at all, remember, when you are starting again, you are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience. A lot of people who have never done anything with technology sadly end up in this situation. I see this happen over and over and over again. So you're not alone. You're not stupid. You just went into a realm that was foreign to you and you didn't know what you were doing. It's very likely that you didn't get it taken advantage of, but you probably didn't get appropriate pushback to when you said stupid things, and you didn't know that you were saying stupid things because you've never done it before.